we do, Jeff, I think they pretty much already know. Like, who's that Jamaican guy underground talking with that old dude? God, it's Jeff. He's 900.
You found that guy down in the mine. What do you mean?
It's the spirit of Mr. Newman.
Mr. Newman.
He hand carved this mine.
Well, no, unlike him, I don't like. I do a broad search of things and research, but I don't want to dig too far in because I like to kind of play, kind of be surprised.
And I'm old and I do my research.
Well, I do research, but I don't overdo it and then talk to you about it.
And Jeff's just old. He does his research,
Yeah?
and then he forgets.
No,
and then he asks me.
No,
Look,
but see,
I
like,
lived it.
I tell you what.
But see, like I know that Jeff got into it when he was 12 years old. I know the story.
Oh, I can tell you some stories
Hey,
about how I got
what are
into
we
it.
going to talk about right now? We're about to go live. We're actually live right
Oh,
now.
I thought we are
See,
live.
isn't that the
We
cool
are.
part?
I didn't have to research it. I lived it.
You right, and that's what, and that's like he says we remember history instead of learning it.
Yeah.
We were there. Is that right?
Yeah, sure, Chris.
Is that
Whatever
how
makes
they
you feel
did-
better.
Is that how they did it in Jamaica?
No, see, Jamaica, it's
say-
just
can you-
impoverished.
Can you say something like "Amon"?
Hey, man.
Hey, man.
We are going live, man.
That actually does work.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Maybe I should just go Jamaican.
Give me some
I'm
dreads.
about to start the show. Who's today?
What kind of show are we doing?
What is that over?
About to say, I hear something. It's the
Oh,
Russians.
He's seeing your feed.
Turn the
Oh, that's what
volume
it is.
down.
You have to mute.
Bad man,
We
come
get that,
on,
like,
give me a
that
break.
radio feedback thing going.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway,
And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Almost Legal Podcast. This is your host, Josh Enkeson, and as always, Chris.
what's up? What's up?
What's going on, guys?
And today we are joined by Underground Birmingham, Josh Box, and Jeff Newman.
I was gonna say the
you
box. You know, there's no way you can butcher box.
Right.
You kind of hesitated
You'd
there
be
for a minute,
surprised.
Josh.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
So, Underground Birmingham. Let's just kind of preface this with a little bit about what you guys do. First of all, they do have a Facebook page. It's Underground Birmingham. An interesting thing is what we're actually talking about here is a very historical thing that these guys are involved in, and we've got some questions for you. But let's introduce us first of all. Let's start a little bit about we're talking about literally underground in Birmingham.
That's right.
Okay?
In the dark.
So we're talking right in the dark, and and how many feet are we talking about underground?
Oh, it varies anywhere from 200 to
A million.
1,500 feet, maybe.
So what we're talking about here is the mines in Birmingham. What's actually under Birmingham? So Jeff, tell us a little bit about what first piqued your interest to get involved in exploring this kind of thing.
Well, I lived over on the south side of Birmingham, just up from south side, just down below the club. Behind my house was Red Mountain and the old Birmingham Mineral Railroad grade. And so as kids, we would go up and ride our bikes up and down through there. And we started noticing these little structures along there. And we said, well, I wonder what that is. So we followed trails from these structures up over the top of the mountain, and we found the mines. And so we started going down into the mines, and that was very cool. But of course, we didn't have flashlights, so we had to get a stick. We'd get a towel. We'd put diesel fuel or oil or whatever on it, and we'd light them, and that was our light. Now, it smoked like crazy, but that's how we started out. And for some reason or another, it just piqued my interest, and it's never left. So I just keep doing it. And when I met my wife, I told her right up front, I said, look, this is what I do on the weekends, so I'm going to be gone. In fact, on our very first date, I took her for pizza on the south side, and then I hiked her up on the Red Mountain and carried her in the Valley View Mine. And she went and didn't
Then
complain.
what happened?
Well, she stayed with me. She didn't leave. And
Nice.
so I thought that
You don't
was
suffer from the same problem I do, obviously.
so I thought that was a good sign, And of course, now she didn't go back with me very often. But
That's when he picked me up.
And that was about 25 years later, though.
So when I heard about this, I was blown away. I was like, I had no idea where at exactly. How elaborate is this tunnel system or mine shafts or like what else? Is it a combination of the two?
Well, it's a combination of 5 major companies that worked in the Birmingham area. Each of them had mines on Red Mountain, and the mines stretched from just northeast of Trussville down to Vance, Alabama. So you say every quarter to a half a mile, there's a mine on the mountain.
Right.
So there were 55.
That's like half the
So-
state.
So is Ruffner the furthest east end?
No, actually, you go on up above Ruffner. It was Smith and Eastman Company had mines up there, and actually there were some mines just northeast of that. So that was kind of the range of what they call the Birmingham district. Now, it went all the way up to Atala and Aniana and things like that. But the Birmingham district basically stretched from Trussville down to just below Bessemer.
To Jamaica, where I'm from.
Yeah, down.
Yeah,
Right?
Well, sort of down Tannehill is the terminus of the Appalachian mountain chain, and
Right.
that's kind of the range of what we talk about when we say the Birmingham district.
It's also a location on The Walking Dead.
So obviously this is
What
something
is?
you've been doing.
Terminus.
Oh, I think it's
Terminus,
Tannehill.
right?
Oh, maybe he did.
Maybe.
Maybe I need to get a mic check.
Yeah.
So obviously you've been doing this quite some time. Okay.
yeah,
This has
I've-
been a true fascination for you even since you were a small boy.
Yes, since
So-
Turn
1964.
your mic. You're talking above it. There you go.
So curious, okay, Josh, you being not as old as we are, that's what we're going to say. How did you guys meet, and when did you start? When was this something you realized this was fascinating?
All right, hold on before people get confused.
Okay.
There's two Joshes here.
Yeah, two
Yeah,
Joshes.
there are. We're going to go with
you have the
Box,
cool Josh.
Box.
That's known as Box. And then you have,
and then,
Josh.
and then Hank.
The weirdo. Yeah. I have no friends. You're fine. I don't care. All right.
That's okay. I'm
So
your
Box.
friend. I'm your friend.
So
yes.
Box. We're gonna
Although the age difference is vast.
Very
How
fast.
did you and him become a thing?
Well, let's get started how I got into the underground. I was about 6 years old, and I was obsessed with the Ninja Turtles. So I decided
How
to
cool.
pop a sewer cap. So I popped the sewer cap, and I went down and I got lost in the sewer system.
He met Pennywise.
Didn't meet Pennywise, but 2 days later, I finally, pop out about 3-4 miles down the road.
You were
So-
stuck in there for 2 days?
Yeah.
Now,
2 days.
I have to ask a question. So what color
Jesus.
mask did you wear?
I was a Leonardo guy.
Okay.
Blue. I was
I
the
mean, I had
leader.
to know.
My brothers, you had Raph and you had Mikey, but Leo was the coolest. He was
Right.
the leader, and I like to boss them around. But Jeff, I have been obsessed with his work. I saw a lot of his work online, and I was going in the mines, but I didn't have the knowledge that he knew. So we kind of reached out through social media. We met up one day, and he lost some clippers. We went down to an old still industrial site to photograph that. And, we just pretty much hit it off, and, we've just been exploring and documenting, and it's been great.
Well, I had to vet him first before I
Oh,
meet
absolutely.
him.
Sure.
Because,
I understand that.
It was a Zuckerberg type
Being from
vetting.
Jamaica and all.
Right.
yeah. Well, you get this weird guy on Facebook, and he starts commenting on your post.
I love your
and-
work, bro.
I heard you took your wife to Valley View.
Yeah, so
Where's that at?
I did the same
yeah,
thing.
and I tell him, well, I don't know where that's at, and I'm not going to tell you if I
Will you
did.
take me?
But I vetted him and talked to him probably for 6 months before I actually took him anywhere, because I wanted to make sure what his intentions were. It's
And it's
kind of like
still-
dating,
Right.
and so I wanted to make sure
It's
he
nothing like dating, guys, just for the record.
We're going somewhere in the dark together.
Who knows?
Yeah, and
Dating's
I'm
a
gonna
whole
be
new
I'm gonna
world.
be in dark holes with him. I want to know what he's about.
Right,
And let's
right.
be honest,
Well,
you
how-
could be trapped in there with him at some
Well,
point.
what was
It's
your,
very true.
I guess, by vetting or whatever, what was your plan with it to do with this? Were you just like exploring, or you made?
Well, my interest went into the historical part of it. I was, like I was telling y'all earlier, I found this out later, but my father and grandfather were coal miners in Hazard, Kentucky. My birth mother got pregnant, and she decided she did not want her son growing up in the coal camps of Kentucky, so she asked my father if he was going to go with her, and he said no, so she left, and they weren't married, by the way. So anyway, she left and married a family friend after that, and they moved to Alabama. He was in the service in Selma, and I was born on the Craig Air Force Field at Selma. But about 3 months later, she decided, because she couldn't keep me, couldn't afford it, they were poor, so she put me up for adoption, and I ended up in Birmingham. Well, the family adopted me, and we lived on South Side, and the mines behind the house, and this is where it all kind of goes around. And then later I met her a few years ago, and I started showing her pictures of what I was doing, and she said, that's the reason I took you out of Kentucky. I didn't want you in holes in the ground. And So anyway, I think it's genetic.
Right.
There's this predisposition to go in dark holes, and so that's what I do. But I do it for a historic reason, not just for the excitement of it, even though it is very exciting.
I love history.
And,
That's the most fascinating part to me. I just love history. I love like going to like old World War II museums. I just love museums in general.
But that's why I had to find out what his intentions were for this, because you take people out to these places, and the next thing you know, they've stripped the place clean,
Right,
and
right.
it's all on eBay for sale.
Right.
So I don't tell people where it is. Underground Birmingham makes it a policy that we do not give locations of mines if they are accessible. If they're closed, we'll tell you where it is.
Sure.
But if you can get in it, I'm sorry, it's nothing personal, but first it's liability. They
Right.
could come back on me if something happened to someone. So, and then also I've been doing this for 50 years, and I've developed relationships with
another
these
0.
property owners, and they trust me, and I've told them I will not give out your locations, and I honor that.
It's interesting, and you said as a boy, you were kind of just searching on your own, and you ran across this kind of stuff. When I was a young kid, okay, and we're talking about the mid '70s, I was out off in Winona, off of Spalding-Ishkuta, playing around in the kudzu that had grown up over the mountain, and I discovered a mine entrance over there when I was a kid, which I thought, wow, this is super fascinating. But I guess the interesting thing, a lot of these obviously have been closed down. Okay?
Yes.
Some of these, if I'm correct, that some of these have been around since the late 1800s.
Well, the first mining here started in 1862 with the Civil War.
Right.
And most all of that was strip mining along the top of the mountain. They really didn't start doing slope mining on the Red Mountain until 1873 to 1876. So a lot of the mines originated in the early 1800s. After commercial mining started and they actually started trying to promote the steel and iron industry here, Henry de Bartoleben started the Alice Furnace Company downtown, which is about 4 or 5 blocks west of where Railroad Park is.
Right.
And 2 of the mines that he started were in 1880. And so those weren't the first ones, but those were kind of the first really commercial ones. And so 1880, these things are old,
Right.
And we just opened, I worked for Red Mountain Park.
Number 10?
Number 10.
Right.
It was one of Henry de Bartoleben's mines for the Alice Furnace Company. It was called the Redding Mine. And we just opened that mine at Red Mountain Park, and it was awesome to be able to go down in there and think, you're standing in a tunnel that was dug in 1880.
Right.
So
how long did that? And I saw on y'all's Facebook page, there's a video, or you guys did an interview with, I believe it was AL.com,
yes.
and there's a video at the end of that interview, which is really kind of cool because they're actually taking the face off of that mine.
That's right.
So I guess when did that get open?
It was in November.
This past November.
Past November.
Oh, so there's still a lot to be learned.
Oh, there's a lot to be learned. Yes, there is.
We've documented quite a bit of it, but I mean, there's still a lot of tunnels and things that you have to traverse down in
So
there.
all y'all's pictures of that's all in Birmingham or in Alabama?
Yes, occasionally we'll throw things up on our webpage that don't relate to Red Mountain iron ore. I've put some coal mine photos on there from out of state, and Josh has put some coal mine stuff on there also. But the vast majority of it is stuff that we've taken here in Birmingham.
It's kind of interesting, and I guess y'all run across some really wild stuff doing this kind of exploration. I saw one picture that Josh had posted. It was a pair of shoes, and I think you guys figured out
the mining boots.
Yeah,
still
based
have
on the size,
spikes.
it was how young these people were that were actually working in these mines. You're talking about 12 and 13-year-old kids
Yeah.
working these mines like that. To me, that's just amazing. And again, when you see something like that and you realize, how old would you guess those boots were?
Oh, well, let's see.
I mean, probably 40s, 30s, 1930s,
Right.
1940s.
Yeah.
Thing about it is, kids nowadays, is there Fortnite down there? Can I play Fortnite?
Right.
Fortnite.
Buddy, we're
I
gonna
hear
go out
one
there
more
and-
thing about Fortnite. I'm
dude,
gonna go insane.
My 10-year-old is obsessed with it. He actually
It
just
looks
got grounded
fun,
from it.
honestly. But
Well, they had a lot of kids that worked in the coal mines. If you there's a guy on there that what do they call him? Shorpy, Shorpy or something. You can Google that. and it pulls up this picture of these kids standing there, and they're all covered in black.
Just soot and black.
And their job was to grease the cables that pull the coal cars in and out of the mines and grease the wheels. And so they're just covered in grease. But they use kids for a lot of that.
So obviously going down in these areas, and again, a lot of people need to understand that some of these mines have been flooded after they've sat for so long. Some of them are filled with water and all that.
They all are.
They all are. Okay. Yeah. So, but obviously, and I've seen some pictures where you guys have run across old mining carts and stuff like that. What are some of the crazy things you run across? The unexpected?
Tell the story about how you ran into Mr. Yule in the mine.
Oh, well, yeah, ran into another person. I was over,
That's got to be a freaky thing to have
Yeah.
happen.
I was out exploring a mine on the eastern end of town, and I won't give the name of it. But I was going through this drift mine tunnel, and a drift tunnel is something that they would do where they would cut across the ore seam instead of following it down like you would with a slope mine. So anyway, I'm going through this little flat tunnel, and it goes in one side of the ravine and comes out on the other. And about halfway through, the guy that I'm with, he says, "I hear something." And so we stopped and we started listening, and you could hear. And so I've got a camera. We're using 35 millimeter back then with flashes on it.
Right.
So I said, "Something's coming." So I got my flash ready, got the camera ready, and I'm sitting there. And about that time, this guy walks around the corner, and boom, I get him. I think I scared him about half to death. But we started talking just a little bit, and he left. Well, now we zoom ahead. This was probably mid-'80s. So,
1880s, that is.
yeah. You go up to, I don't know, let's just throw out a date, 2000. And no, it was a little after that because I was working at the park then, so it's closer to 2007. But anyway, I came across this picture at home in a drawer of this guy. And so I put it on my Facebook page, and I said, "Hey, does anybody know who this guy is?" Well, it happened to be a guy that I work with at the park. He said, "Hey, I know that guy. That guy's Bob
Really?
Yule." And I said, "Well, how do I get in touch with this guy?" And so he gave me the thing, and so I emailed him the picture, and I said, "Is this you?" And he says, "It is." And he says, "I remember that, you know." So, but anyway, now we're the greatest of friends, and
That's a really cool story.
he's still very
My feelings
into
are hurt.
exploring. Also, in fact, he's very into the technical ends of it, and he writes papers on it, and he's very intelligent. So I hang around him so that I can learn all these big words, you know.
Unlike hanging around with Josh.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I learned things from Josh like, "Holy cow," you know.
Right.
Something like that.
Or what Fortnite is.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, that was kind of interesting to meet somebody. I don't know, a raccoon. I met a raccoon one
Right.
day.
That's incredible.
I'll tell you this. I've gone down in the mines before and come across. It sounds like a child screaming, woman screaming. Then you see these eyes. Give you guys a couple of guesses. What do you think it is?
Pennywise.
Not
All right.
Pennywise.
No?
A bobcat.
Oh,
In the mines.
In the mines.
No
I
kidding.
would doo-doo.
Yes.
Like
So
instantly.
that's
I'd be-
another reason, guys. That's another reason
Not
to
to
stay out
go
of those
without-
mines. Stay out of those mines. There's clowns. There's Pennywise. There's bobcats.
That being said,
There's
can
Jeff.
I go?
There's Jeff, yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, there's a danger to what you guys do. There's no
Oh,
question
it's
about
very
that.
dangerous. I tell people when I get ready to take somebody, I said, I have a what do they call it?
A waiver?
A waiver, liability waiver that you must sign before I'll take you in. And the only thing it says on it is you may die.
Right.
And I don't have to pay for that.
You know,
Right.
and I'm not responsible for any injuries or ailments or diseases that you may contract today or thereafter as a result of this tour. But yes, I mean, the ceilings are very unstable. There's
Kind of like Jeff.
well,
Mentally unstable.
that makes it a good match, though. you
Right.
know. So I feel right at home. But yeah, I mean, it's very dangerous. I've been doing it a long time, and I've learned a lot about what to look for, and I can see things.
Seeing something that may be unstable.
Yeah, you can see things after you do it a while, and of course, the biggest thing people are concerned with usually is, well, do you take oxygen meters and things with you into the mines? And I
No,
said,
just a canary in a cage.
no,
Just
actually,
Josh.
I use
You got
Josh.
Yes.
I
You
s-
go first.
That's right. I
Right.
put
How you
Josh.
feeling, man?
I put him. 100 feet out ahead of me,
Right.
and if he doesn't fall, I keep going.
Right.
But actually, though, the mines here, we were talking about the vastness of them. Tennessee Coal and Iron owned most of them, and then occasionally stuck in there in between, you had some other companies. But all of TCI's mines, basically from Vulcan back down to Bessemer, are interconnected.
I was going to say, do they all connect?
They basically all interconnect, and so you have ventilation from one to the other, and so that's one of the things, though. And this is very technical too. You pick up some dirt and you throw it up in the air, and if it just hangs there, you know you don't have any airflow,
Sure.
and you need to get out of that area.
Gotcha.
Or if he's laying down.
Right.
Right.
Or Josh is
Yeah.
passed out when you get to him.
So no, we don't use meters, but I've never gone in a mine on Red Mountain that even, well, I must say, for factualness, yes. There was one mine that I went in that I would not go back in.
Well, I was going to ask you
Well,
because
would you now?
Well, I would now because there have been
Since
some
we've,
changes.
Yeah, a few
but
improvements
but
on
in-
airflow.
Yeah, but in the first time I went in that mine, I went maybe 200 or 300 feet, and I said, "This is not right. We're getting
You
out
could
of here."
feel
How,
it.
how deep do you think it goes?
Oh, it goes maybe 1,200 feet.
Jesus.
Now, people ask, see, that's one of the things they say, well, how deep is this mine? And you have to look at it from a standpoint of, well, do you mean how long is the tunnel or how deep underground?
I just
are
want to know
you?
how much rock's above me,
So
basically.
Right.
basically, when we're in these mines, if you go to the water line, you're probably 400 feet
really.
underground, straight down. But you may be 12 to 1,500 feet down the
That,
tunnel.
my guess was going to be 300, but yeah.
That's a 40-story building,
Yeah, 'cause we've
At least
got-
you wouldn't feel it, you know.
right? So obviously with the danger. and all,
Hopefully,
and-
my luck, I would.
And you even hear
hit
with
your
today
toe
with
like a Lego.
modern day mines where we have collapses and the deal in the Chilean mines where we had all these people rescued. I mean, is that something? I mean, obviously you've been in some places that you felt like were a little unstable. You know, have you ever come to that situation where you felt like you were in trouble, where you know, am I going to be able to get out of here? Whether it be not necessarily due to a collapse, but you know, obviously, I read a little something about you guys. You go in overly prepared. You don't take one flashlight and a
No,
battery.
I take 5 flashlights,
Right.
and I have spare batteries for all of them. And we take water with us, you know, so we can, if we were to get trapped, we'd have water for a little while. But I've only felt one time, and that was because I have anxiety issues. And I'm 67, and I've had a heart surgery. And so I got into a panic attack one time down in one, and at that point I said, "Josh, get me out
It's time to
now.
go."
Time to get out now."
We were in pretty far too. I mean, it was, I would say, 3/4 of a mile.
By
through all the
anxiety.
tunnels
And it really wasn't anything in excuse me, in the safety of the mine that caused that. These attacks just hit without warning, but that's the only time that I've ever felt endangered, and it was not really because of the mine, it was just because of me. Now, I went into a mine out near Trussville one time, and I walked into it, and going in, it looked good. And I turned around to take a photograph, and I looked up at the ceiling, and I said, "No, it's time to go now." No, because there's about a 4-inch crack in the layer of the strata above that. And, you know, I mean, it hadn't fallen, and that was 3 years ago, but you never know. But you see things
Right.
and you say, "Okay, that's enough."
Well, it only takes one time. So
Right.
the way I work, if I have a gut feeling, I'm gonna trust it.
Yeah.
You know,
have
it might
to-
hold me back in certain situations in life, but I'd rather be safe than be a pancake.
So, and I've read a little bit
That's
about
coming from a millennial right there.
right. Okay, but I read a little something
I haven't
about.
eaten a Tide Pod in a while.
By the way, I bought some new ones today. They're fresh new colors.
Are they wintergreen?
Yeah, don't they look nice? The Tide Pods.
Sure, I'm still a liquid kind of guy.
Are you?
You know,
I'm using the powder like I'm in the mine shafts.
That's
under
super
Birmingham.
old fashioned.
now, Chris, another thing that you might respect about Jeff, he has gone through a triple bypass, and he still gets underground and still does this.
I hear you.
Heck yeah, air five.
Chris has like a heart attack just about every other day.
I have 4 stents.
Yeah.
So I've been through that, but I understand the anxiety thing that just comes over you, and it's not something to explain. But it's bad enough if you're sitting at home in your living room chair, let alone being 3/4 of a mile into a mine.
Right,
So
right.
and I can only imagine what that's like. So like as a kid, I was fortunate. I say fortunate enough, maybe crazy enough might be the right word, to have a friend that took me on him with some adventures where I explored the caves under Lake Purdy.
Yeah.
What an amazing thing, because there was no mapping of it. We put a spool of kite string on us, and we went in and we spent days in there, which was really kind of cool. But and there were times in there where I, even as a kid, before my conditions, you get that anxiety feeling because you realize, gosh, we are this far in here. What happens if something goes wrong? And I guess, and it's kind of like being in an old ballpark. You can feel the history. Do you get that feeling when you're in a mine like that? You go, gosh, there. It's almost like ghosts walking around.
Yeah.
You've got that feeling where you're the people from the mid 1800s.
There's so much history
Right?
in there. Something happened. Someone could have vomited there, pooped here,
Well,
ate lunch over here.
Taking their wife on a date over there.
Right?
Well, I mean, I wasn't too disturbed about it. We used to cook hot dogs in the mine. But I think Josh is the one that's probably going to hear people talking in the mines, and that
He hears those everywhere.
So
But
let
it
me
is-
set this up right here. So I'll tell you guys a few things. How does that look, Josh? If it breaks, you owe me a new one. All right, so
We had him sign a waiver.
yeah, I signed a waiver. Zuckerberg signed off. Share this to him if you don't mind. If you can just share that video. So yeah, we we'll go in there. The thing about the history part, you get that to a sense, but at the same time, you can't let the sights that you're seeing overwhelm you, because you still have to be aware of your
Right.
surroundings. I mean, is there a bobcat over there? Is there is Jeff having a heart attack? I mean, is it
There's somebody else
is
in there.
Yes, is the ceiling
Yeah.
collapsing? But we've I've done several paranormal investigations, and I can say the mines, with the way that the rock and iron can trap energy with the flowing water that's down at the bottom of those shafts. Not saying it's paranormal; it could be demonic.
Keep going.
And sorry, I cannot read your writing, Josh. Just tell me what it said.
Sorry, I write really fast.
That's
there
okay.
you go.
That's okay.
You don't need to talk. Just talk right above it. You're good.
Okay,
All right,
gotcha.
keep going.
So where was I before Josh interrupted?
Talking about
paranormal. That's right.
mentality.
So yeah, I mean, it's you come across noises, and then you can actually use scientific equipment, and you can use that. There's no radio that's underground. Once you go under there, there's no signal. There's nothing.
Cell
like that.
phones don't work.
Cell phones
nothing.
don't work. Nothing. So once you're getting feedback, say via the SB7 Spirit Box or Ovulus, something that's able
He
to
obviously
communicate.
doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. No moon landing, guys.
The model that came out in 2013. I love that one.
Right. But if matter is neither created nor destroyed, where does it go?
Right.
It can be trapped in these pockets,
Touche.
and do these pockets, if the conditions are right, if the right atmospheric pressure is right, I mean, can it release recordings of what was trapped in those rocks? It's going to be something that we can debate about. Jeff doesn't believe. I believe. As far as what is it? I couldn't tell you. It could be demonic. It could just be energy.
Could be Annabelle. No one knows.
I don't think it's Annabelle.
I don't know. I'm just bringing a bunch of movie characters in these mines. I don't know why.
We've taken Pennywise and a few other. I've got
Yeah.
like some Freddy Krueger dolls and stuff like that.
Pennywise.
We'll take those in there and photograph those a little bit.
Ninja Turtles.
Right.
So-
you said talking about energy can't be created or destroyed, it can transfer.
Right.
You're worried about it leaving with you.
Yeah.
That
It's
side of things.
right. Yeah. I mean, that's something you definitely have to be aware of, and I had something that followed me one time. So I mean, I gave up investigating, I would say, for about a year and a half, just because I couldn't shake it. I mean, it was just like this oppressive, just dark thing that's just sitting there, just like you've got an itch that you can't scratch. It's just sitting there scratching at you, and it's it's hard to shake.
So I was reading a little bit about one thing that you guys had talked a little bit about, and one of the, I say myths, it may not be a myth. Help us out with this about the river under Birmingham.
I'll let Jeff take this one.
Oh, gosh. I mean, we've gotten a lot of responses. I mean, when we first started our page, I put the first cover photo on there. And it was a picture that Josh took in one of the mines of one of the flooded work headings. And the way that the light was lit on it, and the water just really looked blue, and it looked like it kind of had a little fog. And it was just a great shot. And I put on there, I said, the mysterious underground
We
river of
discovered it.
Birmingham, a question mark. wasn't making a statement. I
Right.
was just making.
Because there is some Indian folklore that says
It was the first clickbait, right?
No, but the thing about it is, another thing, just like the paranormal, Jeff doesn't believe there's an underground river. He thinks there's deep pockets of.
Well, the geology under Birmingham is limestone. Well,
Right.
limestone erodes fairly easily over thousands of years. There are large chambers down there. They have a high water table in Jones Valley.
right.
And that's why they have pumps in all of these buildings downtown, is to pump the water out. Well, so yes, there's definitely a large amount of water. Now, whether or not there's rivers under there, like the articles from the 1800s
Right.
that say they put boats in there and they sailed down,
Right.
I don't believe that for
See,
a
Jeff
minute.
doesn't believe. I believe.
No.
Just like the X Files.
Well,
I believe.
you
Is it
get,
moving or is it stagnant? No water you're coming across. Like you say river, so is it in motion or is it stagnant?
well, now the water that's under the city probably has motion to it because it has, like I say, it has cut tunnels under through there, and the water's flowing. If you go to these limestone quarries that were in downtown in the North Birmingham areas, and when they finish, they all fill up with water. There was one just over off of I-65 North. I can't remember the exact street, somewhere maybe around Finley Boulevard area. Just throw that out there. Well, when I was little or teenager and I'd drive by there, you'd see this huge quarry. I mean, it's deep. And then a few years later, it's
Full
full
of
to
water.
the top of
like
water.
like in Helene and Alabaster, where the quarries have been dug out, and all of a sudden, 25 years later, they're literally full of water.
So yeah, I mean, there's definitely water down there, and it's definitely flowing. Now whether, like I say, if it's a river, people that say yes, there's a river. If you will just come see me, I will buy you lunch. If you'll take me down there and let me get on the boat with you,
I'm willing to
and
ride.
I will go.
But what if my arguments would be, okay, these mine shafts that we go in, you've got, somewhere upwards to, depending on the amount of headers that you can go into, let's cap it off at, say, 20, 30 headers that you can go down to.
And that's small.
That's small. If you look, because that's where you meet the water, about that far. You can explore the headers to the left, the headers to the right.
What are headers?
Yeah, tell everybody what.
The headers, you have the main slope, and the way they would get the ore is they would dig into the sides, and then they would pull the ore from the sides, like on your slope mines.
Like iron ore?
Yeah,
Is that what you're
yeah.
talking about? Okay.
Yeah, they even have those in coal mines. What you start out with your main slope, and it's going down, and about every 100 feet,
Branch off.
they'll branch off to the left and the
Okay.
right, just like you're going through a subdivision and they're building
Like getting
houses.
deposits, finding deposits
Right.
to the left and to the
And
right.
then-
Okay.
And so these are the work headings, and these work headings can be anywhere from 12 feet wide to 35 or 40 feet wide. But they,
So if you want to, if you want to kind of draw to,
I
to
knew
map it out.
I knew I was playing Minecraft right.
Right.
Exactly what I've
Right.
been doing.
But anyway, my argument would be, so if you can go down to 20, 30 headers, right? And that's where you run into the water.
Right.
Let's say, you're a mile down in there. Some of these mines still went 6, 7, 8 miles. Now, if there's not a large body of water that has filled up every single one of these mines, we're talking about, I mean, it can't be a creek. It can't just be, there's water.
Right.
We're talking about, something that's 7, 8 miles deep.
It's got to be coming from somewhere.
So
You know what? I'm going to say it's not
Curious.
an underground river. It's an underground ocean. I'm
Hey,
saying it here. It's an
that could be
underground ocean.
that could feed into the Hollow Earth conspiracy.
You mean the flat Earth?
No,
Is the Earth?
there's there,
No, I'm not a flat earther. No, that's not me.
no. The original was there's a Hollow Earth, and that's what.
Yeah.
No, my curious question though is obviously a lot of these mines you guys are actually out there exploring now. There's a limit to where you can go because they've all filled up with water.
Right.
Is this something that you guys have contacted anybody about or thought about maybe scuba diving some of the rest of it?
Absolutely not.
No?
I'm on board to do it, and I would do it in a heartbeat. But there is one mine that NASA came out because NASA wanted to do some experiments. They wanted to do some stuff with their rockets. So this was a vertical shaft mine. There were only 2 vertical shaft mines, and if you want, I can hold that up and show everyone online too. But there were 2 vertical shaft mines.
To what headers look like.
Yeah, that's what the headers look like. And Josh, if I can see it. God, Jeff's writing is so much better than yours, Josh.
Why are you hating on me?
Dude, because your writing is garbage.
He should have been a doctor.
I know. No.
So and obviously with the NASA deal, okay, and being 2, there's only 2 out of all the mines in the Birmingham area, only 2 of them are vertical.
Yeah. I can't remember how many gallons, but they pumped out. How many gallons did NASA pump out?
Wait, is this like a legit diagram?
Oh yeah, that's an actual
That's
underground
what-
mine map.
In Birmingham.
Yeah.
Holy hell.
So now show him about
It's like
where.
an ant bed.
Right. It's
All right,
that big.
so let me see, Josh.
40,000 tunnels down there.
Okay,
And I
so-
didn't know about a single one of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Look, you can still scroll up,
Wow.
scroll up.
That's incredible.
That's incredible.
So now what you see, you might be able to explore
I might-
5, 6 of those things, and then everything else below that, water.
yeah, see
So that can't just be just a creek because guess what? There's still water. through
Right.
through
And
the
it's not
creek.
like we're in Louisiana. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like we're not below sea
We're in the
level.
mountains still.
Right.
Yeah, I mean you're at the top of the mountain. I mean,
That's puzzling.
I wish people could understand that what
How
the map we
vast
just
that
saw.
was.
Okay, and
I'll
because-
try to add that in post.
Yeah, we'll have to add that later because when your mentality, when you start to think about a mine, we're talking
you
about
see that okay, Josh?
6, 8, 10, 20 headers. We're talking about hundreds.
It literally looks like an ant bed.
and that's one of the smaller mines too, right there.
that's a small one.
And you said these connect?
well, that was this particular one
That's one of the
here
biggest?
was on.
No, that's one of the
This
smallest.
is one of the smaller ones. This,
Wow.
this was one of Woodward Iron Company's mines. It probably encompassed maybe just 400 or 500 acres, and it maybe went down. Let's say a mile. The longest one that I've seen mapped was one of TCI mines out near Muskota, and it was 2.5 mile long main slope. But because they all interconnect, you're talking about from, let's say, the club
Right.
to Bessemer,
Wow.
and the whole of Shades Valley is these tunnels underneath. Now they're not going to cave in and take the whole of Homewood with it
Right.
because at that point they're 1,800 feet underground. So if the mine collapses, it absorbs itself
Sure.
before it ever gets to the surface.
Right.
But these tunnels are just, I mean, it's just endless. Now TCI had over 70 miles of full gauge railroad in their mines underground.
70 miles of railroad.
Now that you have to throw in there, that includes work headings and things
Still.
like that. But
But if you also think about it, there was no technology back then. These were pretty much hand dug, right? I mean,
well, and
so to
Kinda.
speak.
well, yeah,
We're not
I
talking
mean, but we didn't have
Egyptians,
modern
but-
day mining
Well,
excavation equipment.
no, you had in the very early days, it was all pick and shovel and dynamite and some pry bars and a few mules and some stuff like that. In early 1900s, getting into the 1920s and maybe a little before that, they had mechanized into some of the mining
steamworks or
equipment.
something.
They were using air compressor drills and things like that, and they started doing underground powered haulage instead of using mules and things. And so they eventually did bring the technology up. Now, Birmingham was kind of a unique situation in the iron ore mining that a lot of the things that they did here were things that they were taking from the coal mines because that's where a lot of the mining had been done. And they were applying them here, but it wasn't working. So you had people like Erskine Ramsey that was brought into TCI. He was an engineer, and he designed a lot of the equipment and the techniques that they did use here in Birmingham. So Birmingham was sort of on the cutting edge of technology. Some of the blast furnaces and the things they had in the early days were lagging a little behind, but they improved that after U.S. Steel came in 1907. They started updating and getting more to where things were.
See, I went on my 1 year. I want to say reunion. My 1 year anniversary. We went camping at Tannehill, and I had no idea about that. I didn't realize Alabama was such a big deal, and that what Tannehill was. Like, it was most of the war's iron or whatever. They're all came from there because Alabama has like the primo source of like everything you need.
We're one of the few places in the world, if I'm correct, that actually has all three.
Right,
elements.
yeah. All three of those things are here or within. If you stand in downtown Birmingham, you're within 5 miles of everything that you need to make steel or iron at the time, which was one of the things that allowed Birmingham to compete against Pittsburgh and the things up north. Is they had to haul their stuff hundreds of miles to get it together, and we just had to drag it across the valley. So we took an iron ore that was about 35% average, and we competing against their iron ores, which were 70 or 75%, and we were able to make a product that was equal or better to their product for less money because of we didn't have to pay
Resources.
anything for transportation.
And ultimately, these mines are really what the whole process was having is the reason Birmingham is here today.
Yeah, really.
But no one knows anything about it.
Well, that's
the
what I'm saying.
crazy part.
Historically speaking, though, it's really why Birmingham is here today.
Right, because, traditionally a town would start because it was on a river and you use that to get your product
There's that word, river.
Yeah. Yeah.
The non-existent river.
And see, Birmingham wasn't built because of the river, because there's not one, Josh. Anyway, so they build them on rivers to haul their agricultural products and whatever out. But Birmingham was here strictly because of the iron ore, the limestone, and the coal, and you can make iron. Now,
Isn't
if
that
they,
what went along with the name, the Magic City? Isn't that why Birmingham has a nickname?
yeah, it was started.
It's birthed overnight.
The city started growing so fast that somebody along the way said something that's like a
probably
magic
Jeff.
city.
And I guess people were coming here because there were jobs.
There were jobs. I mean, after the Civil War, you had people moving in. The slaves had been freed, and so they were coming up here to find jobs. Unfortunately, some of the politicians and people found some creative ways to
Convict labor.
subjugate those
Sure.
people.
Wow.
You had the people who were investing in the Birmingham area for the iron industry were the same people who were owning the plantations and things during the Civil War.
Right.
So they were doing all this with no pay, no money. So they come up here and they start mining. The Civil War ends. And then all of a sudden, now they've got to pay people.
Right.
So they said, well, there's a way we can get around this. So they said, well, let's use convict labor. So they went out and they would arrest anybody sitting on the street
Right.
for whatever purpose.
To make you work.
They would say, you're in jail for 2 weeks and $50 fine. 2 weeks is up. They still can't pay the $50. So they chunk them into
Stay.
the prison system, and then they start leasing them out.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Is that how you got your first job, Josh?
Yeah.
so, so anyway, but eventually the pressures from society and the law and whatever else did away with that. It was never,
common
it was
decency.
not an acceptable practice. It was wrong, absolutely wrong. Nobody should have ever been treated that way.
Right.
I don't stand for it, but I was reading a book on Birmingham's political history, and the city was so involved in it that their fire department and their police departments were financed by this. So when the pressure on it to get out of it came, they didn't really back out that fast because they had to find other ways to pay for this stuff. But people back then, it was, well, we're going to say legal, but it was not moral.
Right.
And so they justified it under those things. And now I don't know where we were going before. I'm old.
It's definitely an interesting past about it. Let's talk a little bit about the future of what's going on. With this mine that was just recently opened up in November, I was doing a little bit of reading, and from what I understand, it's and I think when they first opened up, they were able to see 200 so feet in there, and now it's up to like close to 500. Am I correct in that?
Well, yeah, when we cut the concrete out and we lifted the plug out, initially there's a concrete tunnel that you see. A lot of the mines don't have concrete tunnels, but Tennessee Coal and Iron in the later days, they started concreting theirs. And the reason for that was these old headings that were cut in the 1800s. They were already all mined out. They're collapsing and everything, so they just tunnel concrete through those areas and block them off because.
Okay, so the headers are all on the other side of those concrete walls.
Right. And so, anyway, that concrete tunnel, when we opened the mine, was 283 feet from the opening of the portal. The mine itself actually goes 670 feet until you hit the water.
So I guess my
Now,
question.
what you're talking about, the concrete, it doesn't stop at every single header. That's the early headers, the unstable,
Gotcha.
so when they're pulling the carts and everything out, you're not worried about collapses coming down or anything like that.
Right.
You still get down to the, to the end of that concrete, what is it, 200 feet?
Yeah, 280 feet.
280 feet, and then it branches out and you have, your headers.
So, and I'm not sure that there's really even, and I'll just ask the question, is this something that in the future with this particular one that might be something that they kind of, and again, caution with what you were talking about earlier, is this something that might be eventually open to the public? Is this something that they could, is that
Well,
doable?
Well, let's say it's on.
It's on the wish list.
It's on the wish list. There's, like say, it's an old mine. There's a lot of liability.
Sure.
We've talked to some insurance people who write coverage for these things, and they didn't laugh in your face, but it's kind of like, yeah, fat chance.
Right,
Yeah.
But at the same time, look at Kentucky, look at West Virginia. They've got mines, just even out west, with gold mines and stuff like that. It could be a financial generator for,
Certainly.
not only the park, but for the city.
Yeah.
Well, I see that this one with the concrete tunnel, it's still structurally, from what you can see, structurally sound. And if we could get the floor of it to where it's not so, it's a pretty steep slope, and it's got loose gravel in it where they had for their ballast for the railroad. But if we could get that stable where people weren't slipping and sliding and falling, I would hope that maybe one day you could at least go the 280 feet, and we could light it the rest of the way. So when you got to that point, you could see the raw tunnel. Now, again, like that's Jeff's wish list. Jeff is just the historian. Jeff is not management. So these are just, I'm not making statements on behalf of Red Mountain Park that this is what we're going to do.
Well, I was going to ask that next question. I'm curious. Obviously, these are all privately owned mines in their working days. Okay, who actually owns these mines now?
Well, we had that question come up when we were getting
trying
ready
to
to open it, because we thought, okay, well, who owns it? Now, there are mineral rights involved here. So we checked with U.S. Steel, which we got the property from. They checked it, and they said, you own the portal. You can do what you want to with the portal. The company that owns the mineral rights said they didn't have a problem with it as long as we didn't take iron ore out of the mine. So, so anyway.
But anything else that you would find, artifacts, whatever, is there plans for maybe a museum type? Obviously, you guys have seen some really neat stuff down there.
We have several things on display at the Bessemer Hall of History that we've rescued, from the mines, and you can go check it out. It's
Well,
pretty
that's
cool.
going back to the history, and the reason I vet Josh and people that I take is because we don't want people taking these things home and putting them in their, on eBay or something.
It's a true piece of history.
So our policy is if we go into a mine and we find something of historic value, it goes to the museum who's closest related to that mine, or so like Red Mountain Park, all that stuff comes to us. But anything that we find down near Muskota or that goes to the Bessemer Hall of History, things like that, we want them on display. We don't want them being sold.
So obviously there are some artifacts already on display at several places.
Right. We haven't found anything really that you'd go, wow, that's just awesome.
I don't know. Because we see so much stuff in there. It might just be. If you come across an 1800s mining cart,
right?
That's
Well,
that's
pretty
great.
awesome. Man.
that's pretty cool. But
That's
you're
pretty
not
cool.
taking that out of the mine.
Well, we're actually trying to. If we can get Mr. Yule to piece it back together for us.
Yeah, well, we did find one in the number 10 mine. It's under a pile of rubble. we'd have to dig it out. But if all the pieces are there, we could get our friend Bob to probably.
Okay, and obviously you're limited as far as how deep you can go into a lot of these mines because they feel like I got to ask the question everybody wants to know. Okay, have you found the human bones?
No, we have not found any human bones in the mine yet.
Yeah.
When we were, we have talked to some people in the hood that said in the past. Was that a bad word to say, hood?
No.
Warning, offensive alert. Someone
Zuckerberg
is
flagging
triggered.
it.
But
Hate speech.
they told us, they said, well, there's a trail that used to go up onto the mountain up there, and some of the gangs over here in the 80s would dispose of competitors.
Not miners' bodies.
Yeah, and we haven't found those yet, but I'm going to start looking a lot harder now.
Right now that you're at least aware that it could have happened.
It could have,
Right?
maybe it did, maybe it didn't.
We've stumbled across a few above ground human skulls with bullet holes and things like that.
Right.
Like, really? Or you just
No,
joking?
no, like really.
No, real.
First 48, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, the police and all that got involved. I think
Okay.
they estimated somebody from the
This-
20s or
they
something.
said this. They said this skull.
Really?
So
This skull was 30 years old or older, and had a bullet hole in the front.
Wow.
And but when I used to go over there in the 80s exploring,
yeah, Jeff ran into his friends ran into a little 13-year-old kid.
yeah,
that was
this was
lost?
no, that he was dead.
Oh.
This
Well, that's lost.
yeah, this was
Yeah,
back.
kind of.
This was back probably 1968, 67, 68. I had fortunately, I had gone to town that week to see a movie, but the rest of our guys had gone mine exploring. And as they're approaching the mine, one of them, from their comments to me, was they said, "Hey, look, that looks like a dog laying down there." And so they got down there, and actually it was a boy.
Wow.
And so they called the police. The police came out, and the guy that did it was actually caught later that afternoon. He jumped off
Wow.
of a hillside onto a moving car. The guy was just stoned out of his mind, but they did catch him, and so that was one of the points to where they started actually closing the mines.
You know,
Do you ever run into people like splunking or whatever? Cave diving?
The thing about it is, I mean, most of these mines are so well hidden, you're not going to find them.
Really?
Even I mean, a lot of the avid
but like I ran
spelunkers-
across one.
Yeah, but
Well, yeah, I mean, the major mine openings up until the 1970s, you could walk up on them.
Yeah.
They were open. and
Right.
You could go in them.
But now you've got to go in through a collapsed header. That's the only way you're going to get in.
Right.
these
And
things.
they're not visibly available.
I have one
anymore.
plus side of Fortnite. Kids aren't going out exploring like we used to. They're
Right?
playing
sitting at
Fortnite.
home
So
doing
Well,
another game.
I've taken all three of my kids in mines.
I'm curious to know. I was wondering.
yeah,
have,
yeah,
have your
I've-
kids experienced it?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing about it is, I've got a contact with AL.com. So, I try to give my kids a little street cred, going to school. It's like, yeah, check out what I did. So,
I know
there,
people.
there was this big article, that we had, and I had, photos of my kids underground in the mines. And, I got all this hate mail. Yeah, it's child endangerment. And,
Oh,
how
right.
could you? And I'm like, whatever. You should see me coaching them playing baseball.
That's endangerment, right? Right. But I guess my question would be, and this is something. Obviously, you guys are explorers. This is what you guys love. In an odd sense, and again, we don't condone anybody going out trying to find these places and going in them. First of all, it's dangerous. Okay?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But I guess the thing for me is that obviously, wow,
That's how you find a lot of those things.
wow.
What,
Wow.
Narnia? What are we talking about now?
But I guess the thing is,
That's how you get into
are
most of
you
these
guys
things.
being?
Yeah, screw that.
With your group, your underground group. Are you guys ever concerned that there are people out there like you guys trying to find the open ones?
Oh, there's
and-
tons. I mean,
Oh,
we,
yeah, there-
we have, what would you say, 50 messages a day. Just, hey, where is this? If you can just give me a hint or a general idea.
YouTubers.
Well,
YouTubers, and you have people that have blogs and things like that.
Right.
Just looking for 15 minutes of fame, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying
Because
to
you're getting
educate
an hour
people
here.
on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're not trying to make another Logan Paul.
You
No, right.
Right.
find Nicolas Cage in there. trying to find-
Oh, dude,
Yeah,
didn't he die like 30 years ago?
No. He just went bankrupt. And sold a
We
bunch of
don't,
stuff.
like I
Same
say,
thing. His
we
career.
don't tell people where the mines
Sure.
are, especially if they're open. Like say,
Right.
if I know of one and it's closed and there's no way you can get in it, I'll tell you how to
Sure,
go
well,
there.
sure.
Hell, I'll find a way.
But you know,
well,
I mean,
God.
hey,
We
I
we
found
don't-
them. Nobody,
Right. Well, that's the
nobody
thing.
told me where they were.
Well, I guess that's my question. Is you guys are out there discovering on your own. Are there other people like you guys out there that you've run across who are out there trying to do the same kind of research that y'all are doing?
There's a few that are doing the research. That are the majority of them are just looking for directions. They want you to tell them where it is, and for their own safety.
Don't.
I'm not telling them.
Right.
I'm not going to be responsible if somebody goes out there and it falls in on them.
Yeah.
It's all
Now, but
random
if they,
miscellaneous, or you like you know what to look for in terrain and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
way stuff grows and stuff like that. I know you don't have to go to
Yeah, I mean the the way
Well,
the
there's
fingers
maps.
are, there's maps. You have the way the fingers. I mean, the map's going to take you to the general header.
Right.
because the maps that you.
But you're talking about 7 miles, that you're searching for to find that
Yeah.
little bitty
Right.
opening that you
No,
can go in.
the maps, the geology maps, when you get them and look them up, which is what I did, and I spent a lot of time doing hiking and doing this, but they don't tell you where they are. They just tell you they're in the northwest 1/4
Right.
of section 28, range 3.
Right.
And so you have to go get your map. You have to start looking, and then, like Josh says, you get out there and you've got like a 4-mile square area. And of course, you know basically what you're looking for,
Sure.
and so that helps.
And then the thing about addition, you're going to come across 20, 30 different subsidence areas, and you go in there, and most of those are collapsed. So it's kind of like
Well, I didn't get anything out of this.
you're finding a
Right.
needle in a haystack, and then on top of that, you got to find one that's going to open up and that's going to connect to a header that's not all the way collapsed. That's going to lead you to the main slope.
Yeah. And like the picture I showed you a minute ago,
You want to show them what it looks like when it's once you get in.
but they've after the 70s, when they had the little boy that was killed, also somebody tried to do some swimming in one up on Red Mountain and drowned. So the state got involved and
Right.
pressured the companies, and they closed all the mines. So they either pushed dirt over them, or like Tennessee
Right, because
Coal
they
and
sat
Iron.
open for years.
Right, and until 1970, they were all wide open. But they made them go in and push dirt over them, close them up, and everything like that. But occasionally, since up at the tops of the mountains, the tunnels are shallow, and they'll cave in, and it'll create a small opening, like the one I showed you with me crawling into.
Right.
And that's what they look like now. They don't look like big mines anymore. They just look like little holes in the ground.
Right. So what? That's awesome. Let's see. That's
The
something
mine
I'd
or my
really love
wife?
to do. I'd love to do that. But so what do you? I mean, obviously you guys are aware of where all the closements are, what's available to you guys that you can actually go in. What do you see for the future? I mean, is there something out there that you haven't found yet that you're looking for? Is there?
Well,
I mean, you've been doing this 50
can't,
years.
I can't say there's not still surprises out there.
Sure.
But I had the geological survey map that I was using from 1910. Okay, there's your clue. It showed every mine from Bessemer to Trussville. And so it was just a matter of hiking. It took me 5 years
Right.
of hiking to find them all. But I think I'm not going to say I've found them all, but I've found 90%
Feel
of
pretty
them.
confident about
I feel
it.
pretty confident that I've got them.
But each time you go in, you see something that you haven't seen before. I mean, we've seen
Right.
signs, miners' lamps, shoes, carts, pumps, tools.
Well, see, that to me, that's the kind of thing that I feel like would belongs in a museum.
Right. I mean,
Right.
we've come across these, wrenches that are the size of, as tall as I am. We've come across pickaxes, where they would sit here and hand carve these tunnels. We've come across the mule shoes when they were still using the mules to drag the, So I mean, there's a lot of history that's just buried.
Yeah, you
You
see
ever come across any like personal items, like some notes written on walls, or like someone's like
Right.
well, occasionally
Mining tags, also the
Repeat what he just asked. I don't think anyone heard it.
He asked if they've seen any like personal items where writings on walls where people had left like messages or notes.
Not
Or,
really. Occasionally you find a name and a date carved into a wall or something.
What was that? What was that name that Mr. Denny found at the drift mine?
I don't remember that.
But it was, it was a name that was carved in from 1920 something, and come to find out, he was he was big into he was one of the workers in the steel mill, and he went out there and did some work out there in the mines. It's pretty incredible what you come across. I mean, we've come across whiskey bottles. Jeff found a 100-year-old peanut.
Yeah, well,
You eat it?
I'm calling it.
Right.
I'm calling it a 100-year-old peanut. It was about 12 work headings down into a mine that was opened in 1882 out near Bessemer, and so maybe it's probably only been there since the 30s, but I'm calling it a 100-year-old peanut.
It's pretty close to
So-
100 years.
If there's a vast amount that you guys have been able to explore, okay, percentage wise, okay, what's still out there that's unexplorable? I mean,
Well,
99%.
I mean, is it really that high?
I'm going to say that there was. I'm just throwing a figure out because I can't remember right off my head. Let's say that there's 70 mines between Trussville and Bessemer, and we've been in maybe 10 of them.
Wow.
And the way I say, the reason I say 99% is you haven't, that you can explore is because you're only seeing a fraction of those 10 or so mines.
Yeah,
It's been a lot more mines. We've been in close to like 30. Jeff's, if you're talking about all the drift mines and
Well, I mean, but the drift mines are part of the main
Yeah, but- Right.
complex. So yeah, you see, I mean, you go into an area and you may have 10 drift mines at Josh Box Iron Ore Mine #1. So you have a main slope and you may have 10 drifts. So
but
you-
within those drifts, you still find some pretty
So
incredible
you-
stuff.
so but
I count them.
So I guess with what you guys have seen, what's the unseen? Okay, when they closed these mines down, did they leave just everything in there?
Well, some of them they left track in them and things like that. Other companies salvaged everything when they came out. We had heard stories about number 10 that somebody had been in there and there were still telephones and communication devices and all of this stuff that's down in there. And so we get in and we go look and none of that's
Didn't
there.
see anything.
We haven't explored it all. There's this one header that we've got to get back in. We've got to see how far it goes. But when I went in there, I mean, it just kept going and going and going. So I mean, I think it's possible that it could actually connect to the 9.5, and then that's another mine that you can explore and see what's in there.
Yeah. And again, this is a tunnel that was probably an 1880s, 1890s tunnel, so it's been mined out for years.
So it's gonna be unstable.
So
Yeah.
it's going to be unstable, and anything that was in there, they probably took a lot of that out. Because the way they'll mine them is they'll go in and then they'll cut their tunnels and they'll leave a 20-foot wall between the tunnels for support. When they finally finish mining that area, they go in and they rob those pillars and just allow it to collapse in behind
gotcha.
them. So some of them collapse immediately, and some of them still haven't
I'm
collapsed.
just hanging,
They're
waiting.
they're
Waiting on us
just
to go
there.
in. It's your
So-
time, Jeff.
So, I mean, we found some pretty cool stuff, tools and things like that. If anything that's really wow and awe-inspiring is probably another 1,000 feet down the slope under 20 billion gallons of water. I mean, they've said that, well, now, it's a fact that in some of the mines that did flood, I mean, there's all kinds of equipment down in those mines.
Right. Well, that's what I was thinking.
Well, is there any like documents on like specs, or you just it's kind of a mystery?
I mean, there's some, just like the Pine Mine. You would take an elevator. This was one of the vertical shaft mines, and you would take an elevator to 8 hours to get to your workstation, and then it would be
I've
pretty
seen
much
October Sky. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like a whole it's like a whole community under there. You had you had your doctor's office. You would eat down there. You would sleep down there. So I mean, a
So
lot
would
of that
so
stuff.
they wouldn't just go down for the day. You'd go down
Well,
and you literally
you-
stay down
you
for
could-
like your shift or
Well,
your.
you would stay your entire shift, but they had, places down there for workshops down there. So that they
Supplies.
It was
you
like
can't bring that up on an elevator and take
Right.
all that stuff
but
out
you,
of there. That's
you know,
what I'm
as
saying.
far as the work crews, generally they come out at the end of their shift. They I don't, you don't actually live down there for a week, but
Maybe I was exaggerating a little bit.
well, Josh is a young millennial. They tend to do
Sure,
that.
I know how they are. I know
he's,
one.
He's talking 8 hours, and it's
Sure.
probably more like 45
20 minutes.
Oh, whatever. Come on.
But I would encourage everybody to check out their Facebook page. It's Underground Birmingham. They've got some amazing pictures on there.
Oh, incredible.
Just do a search, and they've also had an article they did with AL.com that's got some amazing photos and some stories about what you're seeing there. It's some really cool stuff. I mean, historically speaking, visually, everything, and I'd encourage everybody to check that out.
And is Facebook the only platform?
Oh, we have Instagram, but it's
Facebook is
Facebook's
is
the
Best
main
way to
platform.
interact and whatnot.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the major
And
thing.
YouTube? You have YouTube?
No,
Ish?
Ish. I mean, I've
You just
created
post
one,
some
but it's
stuff?
just I kind of neglect that because I'm just so busy with baseball.
Well, I was
and-
going to say, obviously, Josh is wrapped up in baseball right now. What's our next quest? I mean, when are we going again? When are we going again?
Possibly tomorrow.
Really?
I don't know.
Really?
These things, they just kind of pop up. A lot of times we don't plan them. We just go.
That's smart. Just wing it.
I mean, we do.
I may be walking through the woods and find a new hole in the ground and say, hey, we got to go see this. And sometimes we go see it. And there's one that we've been wanting to go look at for 6 or 8 months, and we hadn't been yet. So,
Awesome.
Well,
take pictures, and I hope you guys will keep us updated.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
we will. And like I say, we encourage people to follow our site. We'll try
Yeah,
to
well, learn.
Josh and I have already talked about. We're kind of interested in going and having an excursion with you.
Yeah, but
Yes,
okay.
beam me up, Scotty.
I'll sign the waiver.
We'll start the vetting process in
Right?
6 years.
Yeah,
Sure.
Well, put it this way, I can vet for Chris because back in 2001 I started coaching youth sports when I was still in high school, and I was coaching against this guy
Right.
when his kids were young.
Right.
So I've known him for a long time.
We were talking about that earlier
Same.
today.
Well, see, I did.
I'm 36, so.
Right. Well, that's how he's
yeah.
identifying today. These millennials get to identify however they want to. So.
Right.
For the first 40-something years, I did this by myself. I didn't take anybody.
Right.
Besides your wife.
Well, the one time.
Right.
The one time. Now, I did take my kids one time, and I had to, I said, hey, you want to go into mine? No, we don't. And I said, well,
Absolutely.
Too bad
not.
we're going.
so I said, well,
Get in the car,
I said, I'll buy you candy and M&Ms.
and you will have fun.
And I managed to bribe them with candy and M&Ms. So I
Sure.
got them in one. My son still doesn't
I'll tell you
like
what.
it.
I'll bring the M&Ms.
Did you read in the book Hansel and Gretel before you took them out there?
But my daughter, she's kind of into it. She goes with me.
That's
my,
cool.
My son will go. He'll be the outside guy.
Yeah, I'm going to stay up here, and that way, if you don't come back, I'll
got
let
that life
everybody know
insurance.
that you're missing.
Yeah.
Well, when I started, I used to go out and I'd leave my wife a map, and I'd say, "This is
This
where
is
I'm
where I'm going?"
And I'd take a little flag, and I'd stick the flag in the ground next to the hole I went in. So if I didn't come out,
Really?
they could
I'm
find
in
the
this
flag.
general facility.
And see, he tries to do that, and I'm like, look, Jeff, you can just drop a pin. It's
Now you
it's-
can, you millennials.
Yeah, I'm like, look, this is what
Hey, we're no
this is what
longer
we're gonna do.
millennials anymore.
Right.
Okay.
They separated us from the
Oh, they
new
did.
crowd.
Because
Yeah.
I'm 34. I was born in '84, so
So you're really not then.
No.
I don't.
Well, even me now.
Well, with the
they
way you
separated.
identify.
Well, no, legit. From '94, that's millennials.
There's
Okay,
a cutoff
good.
now.
Good.
Gotcha.
People that.
Well, see, I'm an
it's
old
safe.
long-haired hippie.
I'm an old long-haired hippie too. So
I was out driving the bus for a rock band. We had some guys from Montevallo. Well, I started playing bands.
Montavalo.
I started playing in bands
actually
in about
Beethoven.
64. And, and we
Beatles.
would, the garage band.
Sure.
And we did that and eventually went to Ramsey High School and played with some great guys there. Some of them are still playing. And we won the talent show one year. But I've met some guys from Montevallo that were music majors. And so we had two trumpets, trombone, and saxophone. I played organ and sang.
real music.
Real music. We did Chicago, Blood, Sweat, and
Oh
Tears. and
yeah,
that
that's
kind
what
of
I'm
stuff.
talking about. See, that's my kind of thing.
And of course, we did all the rock stuff too,
Awesome.
But so that's kind of where I came from. I'm an old hippie, but I'm not a stoner because I drove the bus, so I had to stay sober.
Right.
Right. That's safety first.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, make sure you go check out their Facebook page and find out everything they're doing new. They put how often you post pictures?
Well, that's debatable.
We
Well,
try to
good.
get daily. Jeff wants to do like every other day.
I kind of like every other day because I like.
Even better, it leaves mystery. So go,
But
go follow it so you don't miss out.
I post a picture and Josh, Jeff posted, so I'm gonna post something.
Yeah.
And so
I like that. They're
sit-
one-upping each other. I like
But
that.
the thing about it is that the thing I'm posting is like, here's an interview with Jeff, so it's like all about Jeff. I'm like, I'm not
No,
trying to
I-
one
it's-
up you,
What a
man.
selfless
No,
man.
I don't want it to be all about Jeff. I want it to be all about the history, not
Absolutely.
me.
Absolutely.
That's all you're doing is uncovering, this.
Well, I mean, we're talking about history. Jeff is pretty damn old. I mean, that's history.
Well, that's true. That's true. I've been through a lot.
No, but I mean,
But,
Jeff
we have-
has a vast knowledge of this stuff. I mean, so he needs the proper respect and proper acknowledgement for what he's done to
I mean,
get to this point.
in all
It's incredible.
seriousness, I mean,
Yeah,
in
I
all
mean, it's-
seriousness, no, this is it's super fascinating. Okay, we are so glad you guys came on, and like I said, I was intrigued before, but now even more so.
Right.
So
I want to know more and more.
right.
Well, like I say, follow the page and we'll keep posting different things. And
Every other day.
And we don't post just pictures. We try to post educational stuff to teach people about the mines and about the history of the furnaces and the people involved and the workers. It's
I would
the whole
love I
thing.
would love for you guys to post so everybody can see it. That crazy
Diagram.
diagram
Yeah.
of the
I can do
of the
that.
headers. That's just phenomenal. When you really that gives you a real understanding of what we're talking
I'll
about
have to
here.
I'll have to take the name of that
Yeah.
mine off the
Sure,
map first.
sure.
though.
Right.
But yeah, we can post one of those and do that.
Awesome.
But follow it, learn about the history, and again,
Or don't. We really don't care.
And I apologize
I mean,
for
we're not in it for the likes and the follows and all that. You like it or
It's
you
a
don't
real
like
passion. I think that's what I thought. That to me, that's what's really cool about it.
Birmingham has some strange history, so I feel like y'all are definitely doing something positive.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
A lot of us millennials don't understand what really went on here.
Well, a lot of people worked really hard, for a lot of years doing this labor, and they did it to support their families and their communities, and there's a lot of personal stories involved with this too.
Sure.
And so we want to get those stories out there. Also, it's amazing how Josh will post a picture of one of the coal mine portals that he's been to, and just people start coming out of the woodwork.
Who are actually working there,
Yeah,
right?
My daddy did this, and
That's
my uncle
awesome.
did that,
Yeah.
and
And then you never know what they have, memorabilia wise. But
yeah, and that's one thing that we've done over at Red Mountain Park is we've done oral histories of the miners that we've found who had actually worked on the Red Mountain and their families and things like this. We've named a trail after one of the guys. His name was Ike Maston, and we got to meet him, and he was an awesome guy. And he passed away a couple of years ago, but he loaded the last ore car on Red Mountain when the last mine closed.
that is crazy.
In
Awesome.
1962, and so he had saved this big chunk of iron ore.
So he's
and
got a piece.
Well, he donated it to the park.
Cool.
So we have that now, so we named a trail for him,
Oh, that's nice.
and so that's
People need to go out and visit the park. Okay, it's actually become way more than what people probably think
what
it
the
is.
millennials like to do.
Right?
well,
check it out.
We,
Come check it
Go
out.
let your dog crap on the trail.
we got 15 miles of hiking trails.
Right.
You can ride your bikes on all of them. I would suggest you walk the Ike Maston Trail before you ride your bike on it because it is some places not very bike friendly. We tried to design all the trails to be correct for, but there's areas in there with the mining that we could not go through. So instead of being able to follow the terrain and the contours like we needed to, we had to just actually go down a hill and straight up another one. And
Right.
that's, the bike guys don't really like that, but, it was just out of necessity. But we got 2 or 3 guys who are really serious, and that's their goal, is to ride that whole trail without getting off their bike.
Wow.
So it's 2.5 miles long, so.
That is incredible. Nah, I just love history. I love to learn about stuff like that.
Yeah,
But be sure to go check out Underground Birmingham and learn. I didn't even know up 2 weeks ago. I had no idea they even existed. But yeah, go Facebook, Underground Birmingham. And also, if you like what you heard, please go rate and subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, any other podcast app you'd like. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just search Almost Legal Podcast, will pop up. Also, go subscribe on YouTube and hit the bell icon. That way you'll know when we go live. And probably the next week, we'll be having live calls. So
Yeah.
be sure to do that. That way, if you want to call in, you can call in and ask some questions, interact with the show. That would be wonderful. And once again, guys, thank y'all so much for coming on the show.
And what do they call that? A plug.
Oh, yeah,
A shameless plug.
Absolutely. Take a shameless plug.
We're going to try to come out with a book by Christmas.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Fantastic.
So it'll be kind of like a coffee table book. It'll have a little bit of
Nice.
history.
And where will that be available?
We don't know yet.
Jeff's trunk of his
Well,
car.
we have to.
We haven't gone that far.
Yeah, the trunk of my car down on Morris Avenue, probably.
You can get at the Shell station over there.
But yes, but
Get
that's,
it Almost Legal podcast.
but hopefully,
Yeah, right.
that's coming if I can.
That would be really cool.
I'm not going to.
It'll be Amazon. We've got a few avenues that
I'm not
that we're
going to try to
exploring.
put all the history in it. I'm going to put a little of the history, and that way, if you're interested, you'll have the
You dig
names
more into
and
it.
things that you can go find.
That's
Nice.
smart.
And so that'll be kind of what that is.
Well, let me know when I'll put it out there.
Absolutely.
I'll definitely
Absolutely.
put that out there. Yeah, and also that being said, we should have new merch within by the end of next month. So supplies they'll be flying off the shelves.
Absolutely,
So I'll
absolutely.
be sure to let y'all know because I've had a huge high demand on shirts and everything else. I'll let y'all know when it comes out and how to purchase. But until next week, guys, once again, thank y'all so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
And if we aren't able to sell the books, I might start singing on the street corner too.
Hey,
Yeah,
whatever
that
it
works.
takes.
$20 is
20
$20.
bucks is 20 bucks. That's
I
right.
don't need a whole lot of money.
That's
right.
I don't need a big fine car.
That's $20
I
right
got
there.
everything that a
I'm just gonna
man
sell my
could
body.
want. Oh no.
I can't sing.
Again,
Yeah.
20 bucks.
That's
That's 20
hey,
bucks.
No, if you're gonna sell your body, you may as well just.
We all been there back in the 80s. All right, see y'all guys.
Thank you for
We're
having
out.
us. Well, that was fun.
Yeah. Oh, dude.